that's the way I used to mark up these pages. So I would know the colour palette we were going to use, depending on what the scene was written, how it was written, and how Dale was illustrated it. It was night, or it was day, or it was a particular set in a particular place. And particularly towards the end of the Watchmen, when they were doing flashbacks that were actually appearing, we needed to do the same colouring that appeared in the original scene, and then we had to do it in, if it appeared in page 20 in issue 1, and they did the flashback, I had to get the same palette. So it started becoming incredibly complicated towards the end, trying to balance the flashbacks and what was happening story-wise. So to a certain extent, some of the colours, some of the scenes and some of the panels became almost a direct complementary reflection of the colours that you should not necessarily use, but I was dictated to use them, not by Dave or by Alan, but by the way the story was unfolding. And that really became problematic towards the end, particularly because I didn't actually take any colour notes originally. I never thought the complexity of the story.
Is that professional?
And I'm probably an amateur at that particular time, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, I used to do the wash over the reduced black and white copies that Dave supplied me with. And then at the end of the day, I would do the markups for all the colour inks that were going to be hand set at the production stage later on in America.
But you can see, I mean, like so many things about comics, it's a bit like the thing about, the swan kind of gliding across the lake. It all looks, when you see it printed, particularly absolute smooth, obvious, but it's such a complex thing. John was paddling like mad to get this stuff done. And as you can see, all these coatings, every area of colour, John had to put a line to and a notation of whatever it was, R2, Y2, which is maybe a mid-orange or something like that. So it had to be encoded. And then the actual physical separations were done by, as I understand it, women on piecework sitting at their kitchen tables with sheets of acetate with a sheet for every percentage of the 4 printing colours, marking it up with ruby lift pens or whatever. It's just nightmarish. Whereas now, as John says in Photoshop, all you lucky people just select it, click, and fill it with any colour you want, and that's the way it prints. So, but yeah, just coming back to the absolute thing, our philosophy on that was, it was a bit like a digital remastering of an old piece of music, that it's fair enough to clean up the kind of scratches and the pops and the hisses, but if there's a bum note in there, you should really leave the bum note. And believe me, in the drawing, when you've looked at the drawing as many times as me, there are plenty of bum notes in there. But I thought, if I try and replay all this, I'm never ever going to stop doing it, So that was our philosophy, that a mistake was a mistake, but anything that was surface noise we would correct. So.
I think the nice thing about just working on Dave's artwork, because of the purity of the black and white line and obviously the clear white spaces, and Dave also gave me an opportunity to do backlight things. So if I could set a scene where the backlighting was coming in and reflecting off the side of the face, and then I would have the foreground colour on the foreground of the figure. So that gave me a great opportunity to play around with really exciting colours, and that was because of the way Dave had done it. He actually did light and shade, even before it got to the stage where I was doing light and shade and colour.
And John understood the light shade. Quite often, colourists impose their own lighting on it, and that's when it kills the whole thing. So it really helps to have a colourist who draws themselves and understands drawing, because then everything works. Probably the next one. Oh yeah, well, if we're going to go off colour now, what I just want to say is, I imagine most people in this room are interested enough in Watchmen that they've seen the movie. The thing that I was thrilled about, and I'm sure John was how much of John's palette made it through to the movie. It's so distinctive, the purples and the greens and the oranges, and I think that's typical of the kind of care with which the movie was made. And I was thrilled to see that so much of its visual identity, actually driving through Hollywood and seeing these huge hoardings, were John's colour palettes. There was the orange and the purple and the green. So I think John, all the way throughout the process, has been absolutely integral to the look of that. So, you got anything to add, Bob?
I'm just enjoying this experience myself.
Were these done as plates for an advertising? They weren't done as plates for the poster?
That was one of the original house ads.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is incredible. Effectively the house ads.
And I don't know, but then Zach decided to do promotional posters for the movie that were modeled on each of those original house ads, which was just when I really started to think he was just a crazed genius, was the right person for this.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, imagine how I felt, you know, having drawn this, then to actually see a photograph of it as if it had really existed at some time, you know. It was amazing. In fact, what would have been great to have a time machine, go and see the movie, then go back and draw the book, because all the lighting and everything was absolutely sorted out.
So for the time machine, now this is the second time today you and I have discussed
Yeah.
having a time machine.
Yeah. Well,
now would you have preferred to have seen the movie, gone back and drawn the book, or to have gone back and picked up those 50 copies of Fantastic Four #1 that you walked by?
Well, probably I'd have picked up the 50 copies of Fantastic Four, and I never would have had to work again. I never would have drawn that. I don't know. But no, I mean, what we tried to do with these images, and they each had an accompanying quote. I think this is the "Whatever happened to the American dream, it came true." You're looking at. Although it was screwed up the first time round by DC editorial, nothing to on, and it just said "Whatever happened to the American dream." You're looking at it, which hasn't got quite the same impact. But you know, we tried to make these really dense illustrations. You know, there's a lot of information, and it actually, in some ways, was a warm-up for what we did on the comic book itself, to see how much we could produce a clear and striking illustration, but still have it loaded with background detail that you could get a whole story from. So there are a whole series of these. Originally, they just appeared in black and white, I think. Yeah.
The nice thing was I actually got the opportunity to colour them last year because Wizard did a special on the Watchmen.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to actually go back to this form of colouring, because this was we did some movie tie-ins, which was like very editorially driven from DC, and we had no problem with that because it wasn't anything to do with the Watchmen graphic book, it was to do with the movie. Which, like, going back and colouring these for Wizard was just brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
There we go. Oh, yeah, so there you go. There is Jeffrey Dean Morgan up at the window, about to assassinate some South American dictator on behalf of the US government. And it's just fantastic. So, I mean, it's not, you know, but it is exactly what I had in mind when I drew that. I mean, I've obviously turned it round a bit and taken the mask off so you can see it, but it's such a faithful recreation, it's uncanny. This one. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think this is to show, that's my original little drawing up at the top left of little colour off of Dr. Manhattan. I don't know why I did these in colour, whether these were done specifically as a guide for John, you know, so he knew the actual colours, the actual base colour of the characters, or whether I just did it as just to get myself excited about it. And then it's a movie design. I don't know who did that. It's a piece of artwork. I don't know who the guy is on the right. Is that maybe before the bad thing happened? I don't know. Anyway, next. Oh yeah, and could you flip to the next one and then flip back? 'Cause this is probably another. Yeah. Just flip that backwards and forwards a bit, because it's strangely hypnotic. But as you can see, this is Dr. Manhattan taking the machine to bits with his brain, and then the photographic thing. And I think just go to the photo. Yeah, they almost understood it, but if you look at the picture, go back to the drawing. Actually, Dr. Manhattan's leg intersects that thing. Can you see that it actually intersects? I don't think they quite understood that, and I must admit it's not completely clear from the drawing, but that was just to give an idea of the weird way in which Dr. Manhattan interacted with the world. Also, as you know, if you've seen the movie, Dr. Manhattan is anatomically correct in every detail. And I don't know if I was going to draw that again, whether actually you would see evidence of that in a shot like that. Anybody care to demonstrate? Bob?
Did you have a chance? Did either of you have a chance to see this in IMAX?
Yes.
Because I found that in IMAX, people were coming out of the theater going,
Yeah. Yes. They were doing that a lot because there was a lot of swinging around going on. Yeah, I understand in the movie they did actually have a range of penile sizes to choose from. Whole committees of people. I think number 4 next to the 6 is a bit, and about 5, I think maybe 5's the one. It's one of those discussions that I'd have loved to be in.
And every one of the convention panels that I attended where the cast was there, there was always someone who was like, "Excuse me, sir, is that based on your real, your junk?" You know, and it's just, and it was just like, no, that was shortened.
I don't think they actually had the motion captured box in that car.
No, I would hope that he had passed on that. David probably should have been looking for him.
Because, of course, when I drew it in the comic book, what I had in mind was sort of like, is it Leonardo, the Vitruvian Man? You know, the guy standing there with his arms out, where it's, as in a lot of that Renaissance stuff, it's rather idealised and minimised. But I think they felt that people would have sniggered at the most powerful man in the world in a movie having such a little dinky little. So, you know, it was a difficult one.